Zoom call. Welcome everybody to another Zoom call. A bunch of questions came in, so let's jump right into it. Reminder to look on the member site. We have a question about the glucometer. This is a glucometer, but any glucometer will work. You can buy one at Target or Walgreens or something, or you can order it on Amazon. They're not very expensive. And would it be advisable that everybody checks their glucose? Maybe, maybe not. Again, I don't want, if you're, it depends on the person. So yeah, I think, the less you can feed the cancer, the better off you're even. You have to have that balance on what's going to bring you anxiety and or not too. So just necessarily one more thing to do. But checking glucose can be beneficial. There's information on the member site about that. Remember, you have access to the courses and all the blog posts. I do want to touch on this again this week because TrueRife did send out an email saying that version 6.2, now it's up to 6.4. So 6.4 is the version that's the current running version. But version 6.1, 6.2, and 6.4 is different than what all of you have. I think everybody on this call is running 6.0. But those that started with us in the last few weeks are running 6.1, 6.2, or 6.4. 6.4 just came out this week. Now there's issues with these, so don't think that you have to upgrade. I do think that they are going to be improvements, but there's some tweaks to it. You have to get to your program a different way. If you go and call TrueRife and they upgrade your version to 6.1, 2, or 4, you will lose the programs that I created for you. And that is going to be a problem, obviously. So don't do that. If you want to upgrade to a higher version, then please contact us, and you'll have to ship your computer back to us. And I will have to upgrade you to the new software and put your programs back on. And then they go on a little bit differently. You don't see them in the main screen of as you open up the open program screen. You have to go to documents and then find your program. So it's a little bit trickier. I do have a video on how to get to your programs with the 6.1, 2, or 4 software. This is how you would do it. I'm not going to go over it. This is on the member site. So let's get to the questions. First of all, does anyone know of a good oncologist in the Atlanta area? We have a patient that's moving to that area and wants to go to an oncologist down there and find somebody who's open to alternative minded things, or at least open to doing what the patient wants to do, not pushing a person just towards what their protocols are. So please email me if you do know anybody. If anybody's listening now, you can chat it in, but otherwise email me so I can inform that person. I'd appreciate that. Okay, how many days should someone back off taking their antioxidants after receiving chemo? Are there any other supplements that should be withheld for a time? So we do have a blog post about this that gives you some general considerations. Now, understand, there are a lot of alternative practitioners that say, don't back off at all on doing antioxidants. Don't change your supplement protocol at all. So, you do want to pray about it. My belief is that, chemo is a strong oxidizing agent, and you want it to work as best as possible. So I do think, you should lay off your antioxidants at least for 48 hours. And are there other supplements that should be withheld? Maybe you could lay off all your supplements for 48 hours. There wouldn't be any problem with that at all. You don't want to be doing a lot of strong detox for that 48 hours, because you want the chemo to stay in you for that 48 hours and work and kill the cancer. So you would not be amiss at just staying off of everything for 48 hours after that chemo. And if you're going to do a fast prior to the chemo, you may stay off everything during that 24 or 48-hour fast prior to the chemo. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But I also don't think that there's necessarily anything wrong with the approach that other practitioners take and not going off anything at all. You just need to pray about that. My personal feeling is, if I was going to do the chemo, I would go off the antioxidants during my fast prior to the chemo, and then for 48 hours after the chemo. And I wouldn't do any coffee enemas, and I wouldn't do strong detox support. I'd lay off of that. So I may actually lay off of everything for that 48-hour window, and then you can go back on everything. A few weeks ago, I began taking Black Sam Bloodroot. So Black Sam Bloodroot is a capsule supplement that has graviola and black sam and some other things in it. Per your recommendation, 3 times a day. About 10 days after the first dose, I also took water enema and had dead parasites in it. This caused me to ask some questions. First, should I take fenbendazole for 3 days in addition to Bloodroot to kill any parasites? Or will the Bloodroot kill the parasites alone? So the parasites, I'm not giving you Black Sam Bloodroot to kill parasites. So I have never recommended Sam Bloodroot for the purpose of killing parasites. I'm recommending the Black Sam Bloodroot for the purpose of helping your body kill cancer cells. So that is the purpose of. Now, does it have things in there that can help kill parasites? Sure. Can you take fenbendazole with Black Sam Bloodroot? Yes, you can. If you're not currently taking fenbendazole, should you take it just because you saw the parasites? I wouldn't. No. If that's part of your protocol, then I would stay on it and follow your protocol. Is there a conflict in taking fenbendazole and Black Sam Bloodroot at the same time? No. And should I stop taking any other supplements before taking fenbendazole? No. So you can take fenbendazole with all your other supplements as well. I read that you aren't supposed to get IV vitamin C infusions if you're taking Pectisol C. Can you explain? Can I just not take the Pectisol C the day I get vitamin C? So I don't recommend this. So I recommend that I do not recommend that you omit Pectisol when you're doing IV vitamin C. Now you can certainly, upon another practitioner's request, not take the Pectisol C the day that you're doing the vitamin C IV. But I have never actually told somebody to not take Pectisol C even the day that they're taking the IV vitamin C. So I don't see a big conflict. I think some of the research said it's not going to work as well if you're taking IV vitamin C, but it's just the day that you do IV vitamin C. When you take any vitamins, it has a half-life in your body and it's going to dissipate quite quickly. So question on the cheek swab, the supplements from another practitioner, do you agree with the dose? No, I didn't test the dose of those things. When you get supplements from another practitioner, I don't test the dose on that. That's up to your other practitioner if you choose to take that. I just test whether I think it is uh, um, advisable to take that, so whether it tests negative or positive. That's all I test when I test another practitioner supplements. I know you can't talk a lot about meds, but mebendazole, which is the human form of the fenbendazole, is so expensive. Is fenbend okay to take? Well, you do have to look at the dose equivalent. I think it's 112 milligrams or something of the human equivalent of fenbendazole. So yeah, I've never looked at the price difference for that. I don't think that the product itself is, and I could be wrong on it, but I don't think the product itself is any different. I think they're the exact same product. They're just sold under different labels. So I think you would be fine. That's my opinion. You think all the reactions I had to the mistletoe could raise my liver enzyme so fast? The answer is yes, for sure. So anything that causes an inflammatory reaction can raise your liver enzymes, actually pretty immediately. So yes, that's a very big possibility. Yes, drive settings were okay. I did test that on your cheek swell. So if I didn't change your right settings, I didn't send you a flash drive, then there is no need to change. Sometimes I actually put no need to change drive settings. Sometimes I don't actually type that, so you might not see them. But if I need to change on the cheek swab, you asked me to check your drive settings. I for sure did, and if I don't send you a flash drive, then there was no change. Can you comment on my chest X-ray? Yeah, it was pretty benign. So the your X-ray didn't show any horribly gross abnormalities. There was some possible fluid, and that's why the radiologist, when he uses those kind of obtuse words that are difficult to understand, it's because he can't be specific because there's blurred margins and things like that, the words that he used. It's because fluid's in there. So and I think you did send me another question saying that you had a half liter taken off your lung today, which is great, and that will make you feel better. I will, is a word, maybe this will be a word of encouragement to this person. I've had people that have had 5 liters of fluid and more taken off their abdominal cavity and 3 liters more taken off their lungs. So half a liter isn't a lot of fluid that's built up. So that's actually a good sign that that you got that taken out, that you'll get instant relief from that. And it's a good sign that it wasn't as much as you originally were thinking possibly too. I haven't had much cheese for such a long time, but I'm craving cheese. What am I missing? Well, I don't adhere to the philosophy that just because you're craving something that you are always depleted in something. I crave cupcakes, and I don't think I have a deficiency in cupcakes. So it's that's not always the case. So is it possible? Yeah, is it possible that you're deficient in some minerals or something that you would get from cheese? Maybe, but you are taking minerals, so I doubt it. So I don't think I wouldn't always equate it to when you're craving something that you're deficient in something. I'm on chemo pills. One of the side effects is elevated glucose. You have me taking less berberine. Do we just keep an eye on this? Yes. Yeah, let's just keep an eye on that. In the testing, you came out with, I think I dropped your berberine down to 1 a day or something like that. Talked to my other doctor that did the Signatera test in June. It was over 1,200. In September, it was down to 550. Well, that's huge good news. There's always silver linings in everything that's going on, so that's good. While looking at options for breast cancer treatment, it's become apparent that a mastectomy, this is for this person, of my left breast would require a skin transfer from my stomach to close the wound. So sometimes people don't have enough flesh. Their breasts might be really small, and they need to do a skin graft to close the wound. Would a skin transfer trigger unwanted cell growth like elective surgeries we talked about last week? Well, any surgery is going to stimulate your body to need to heal from that wound. So you just have to do what you have to do. So I think having the one surgery, they'll do the skin graft immediately to close that wound. Yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to do that. You need, I wouldn't hesitate to do that at all. I've always had trouble detoxifying. For the last 2.5 years, I've been doing 1 to 3 coffee enemas per day, which means I haven't had a bowel movement without an enema. Should I be concerned about that? Should I back off the enemas and try different supplements to see if my body will produce a normal bowel movement? If so, which supplements do you recommend? No, I wouldn't be concerned about that. There is nothing wrong. The whole thing is that you have to be limiting. If you're using coffee enemas on a daily basis, you're not using them for the purpose of having a bowel movement. You're using coffee enemas for the purpose of stimulating your parasympathetics, so that you you get all the benefits from that. That's going to help stimulate your liver function. That's going to help calm your body. That's going to help decrease anxiety. That's going to help decrease blood pressure. That's going to help stimulate an immune response. All these wonderful things that stimulating the vagal nerve by doing a coffee enema. That's the whole purpose of it. A side effect, you could say, of doing a coffee enema is that it can stimulate a bowel movement, but you're not doing coffee enemas for the purpose of doing bowel movements. But if you're having a bowel movement, if you're getting stuff out of your body, if you're having a bowel movement, whether you're using a coffee enema or not, that's all we care about. So I don't care if you're having normal, quote unquote, bowel movements without coffee enemas or not. Don't be concerned about that. I'd stay on track with what you're doing. You're doing so well doing with the coffee enemas. I would not change that whatsoever. After a recent cheek swab, you recommended an increase in protein, 1 gram per ideal body weight in pounds per day. Should I decrease fat and or carbohydrates with this change in protein? Well, you are going to be increasing calories. So if you're gaining too much weight, then is an issue, and you do want to decrease carbohydrates. But I don't think anybody in my patient base has that issue. It's the purpose of decreasing carbohydrates would be to decrease your blood glucose levels and decrease the fuel supply that a cancer might have. So no, if you're at normal body weight or a healthy body weight, or if you're under body weight, I wouldn't change anything. As far as your fat or carbohydrate consumption goes. If your glucose is high and if you're eating too many carbohydrates, so that's a different story. If you're under body weight, then you really can't decrease carbohydrates at all. So I would just try to increase that protein without making those changes. So there's a lot of ifs in that answer. So it depends on where your body weight is, where you're coming into this, what your body weight is. Does the source of protein, plant or animal, matter? Yes and no. There's nothing wrong with getting as much protein as you can through plant sources. It's just, is a person able to get enough protein through non-animal sources? It would be difficult, honestly. Is it necessary? Is it better to only get plant protein? I don't think so, no. There's benefits to animal protein. There's benefits for your red blood cells. There's benefits for platelet count. to get some animal protein in. It's just a matter of having that balance and having good quality animal protein. You can get grass-fed beef. It's so much better, so much more nutrient dense, and has good fats, good omega-3s in it versus grain-fed animals. So try to get grass-fed beef as best you can. I know bone broth is not recommended due to the glutamine content. Are both collagen and gelatin okay? And do they qualify as a good source of protein? Or would you recommend your protein powder instead? Well, I don't necessarily recommend any protein powder, because any protein powder you're going to get is only going to be 20 grams of protein. And that is a lot of filling up going on in that. Whereas if you eat a piece of chicken, you're probably getting, 40 to 50 grams of protein with just as much filling up going on. So I don't, and I just think that might be a better bang for the buck if you can. Now, if you're using a protein powder, I'd recommend the protein powder that we have because it's low in glutamine. But back to the question about collagen and gelatin, is collagen and gelatin okay? The answer is yes, but you have to be careful with it. Collagen can have glutamine in it. I don't know the content, it depends on the type of collagen that you're using, but collagen does have other possible issues with autoimmune issues. It's not that uncommon. So you might want to test it. So, I mean, do you feel better or worse when you're taking collagen? So try to, ask that question with collagen. It's not that uncommon. The reason why I ask, it's not that uncommon for you to develop antibodies to collagen tissue. We see that with autoimmune patients. I mean, it's not super common, but it is a possibility. So do watch and see if you have any reaction and increase inflammation to collagen. Gelatin too. So if you needed to know these things, collagen is tested on the Cyrex Array 5, and gelatin is tested on the Cyrex 10. Those are just possibilities, so just be careful of that. Try to look if you're taking those things, make sure you note if you're increasing inflammation after you take them. You mentioned the glucometer and past Zoom calls. Do you recommend one for each of us? Should we all be trying to keep our glucose levels below 80? Well, the answer to that is yes and no. I don't think everybody has to do everything. It depends on the person. So I just, talk to somebody that I think is on this call that we talked about, just kind of laying off on that. Don't get too anxious about measuring glucose levels. That could cause anxiety with some people. So we don't want to do that. We don't want anybody to be so hung up on their diet that they have anxiety around it. You do your best to eat the best you can and to follow a protocol without making it a god in your life. And I know that sounds awful, but we can tend to do that with things, especially when we have serious illness. We could get a little obsessive about stuff. And I don't want you to get obsessive about measuring your glucose levels on a daily basis either. So yeah, I have a glucometer. How often do I check my blood glucose? Not very often. So, and why? Because I don't obsess about those things. I've said in the past, my diet is probably worse than everybody that's on this call. That doesn't mean that's the right thing to do, but that's not something I obsess about. When I feel convicted about eating something or something I'm consuming, then I just back off on it and try to get back in balance. It's a lot of times I go out of balance the wrong way, but it's easy for some people to be out of balance in an obsessive way. And I don't want you to do that, because that just leads to anxiety. And anxiety, what does anxiety do to us? Anxiety just shuts down our parasympathetics. So, and we need our parasympathetics to detoxify. We need our parasympathetics to have a healthy immune response. That's the whole idea. And that really is the whole idea about trying to increase your protein levels, because those are your building blocks for your lymphocytes, and your lymphocytes, your T cells, your natural killer cells, which are lymphocyte subsets, are what kill cancer cells. So that's the whole idea of saying that. So even when I say try to get your protein levels up to the grams of protein per body weight, what your desired body weight is, it's not something you need to obsess about and necessarily need to count on a daily basis either. Just go, oh boy, I just kind of look at mine. I guess I am only like 30 grams of protein a day. I need to bump that up. I need to start eating some chicken or some beef every day and get that up there. You don't need to necessarily count it every day and be obsessive about it. I don't want that for anybody. We have to stay in balance and keep our focus on doing what's right. But our focus shouldn't be on the acts of doing right. Our focus needs to be on our Heavenly Father, and just ask Him and develop that relationship with Him, and be asking Him to convict you about what you need to tweak and what you need to change and what you need to do. And you use guidance through, us and me as best as possible, and others, and you don't want to become anxious or obsessive in anything that you do, whether it's diet or your supplements or anything. So just guarding you against that. Last week, you answered a couple questions for me regarding electrically recharging depleted cells. So if we missed last week, we were talking about your cell membranes hold a charge. And that charge is measurable, actually. That's called your phase angle. So you can measure your phase angle. For those who, days gone by, used to come in our office, we used to measure your phase angle. You mentioned the PEMF was good technology to assist with this. I have a Beamer. A Beamer is a PEMF machine. So, and I have been using twice per day, morning and evening. I found 2 interviews on your blog library referencing the Beamer, and your guests categorize it into the category of PEMF. That's right, because the Beamer is a pulsed electromagnetic field. It's called a low Gauss pulsed electromagnetic field machine. My doctor recommended it to improve microcirculation, but does Beamer also work to electrically recharge depleted low voltage cells? The answer is yes, that's exactly what the Beamer does. That's exactly what a PEMF machine does. That's really the main benefit of a PEMF machine. 2 water questions and a mineral question today. Context. A relative of mine recently spent 2 weeks at the Karlfeldt Clinic for a colorectal cancer treatment. While there, the clinic provided alkalized water produced by a Kangen machine. In researching your site, I found 2 articles where you discouraged the consumption of alkalized water. Number 1, if one is consuming a healthy diet, clean, balanced, organic, not factory processed, and not relying on alkalized water to compensate for an otherwise poor diet, is there benefit to consuming slightly alkalized water produced by an ionizer? Okay, so number 1 is that should I use alkalized water at all? So does alkalized water alkalize my body? That's really the question, because you've heard that cancer grows in an alkaline environment. Cancer grows in an acidic environment. I mean, that has kind of been a dogma in the alternative world. Now, number 1, I totally disagree with that dogma. I totally disagree with that statement. Cancer does not grow because the environment is acidic, nor does it stop growing because the environment is alkaline. Cancer is growing because the cell is defective in the DNA replication piece. That's why cancer grows. So something got inside the cell, damaged the DNA, it goes into rapid replication and replicates cells that are rapidly replicating. And the rate of that replication is the speed in which the cancer grows, the rate at which the cancer grows. So, and a quote unquote aggressive cancer has a higher replication rate. Maybe it's replicating every day. Maybe it's replicating every hour. That'd be very aggressive cancer. So, or maybe the cancer is replicating very slowly. So, and our goal is to stop it from replicating or to slow the replication cycle. You're slowing the growth of the cancer. That's the idea. Now, anytime cells are rapidly replicating, they're highly metabolic. Take a lot of energy. It takes energy in order to do that. When a cell produces energy, and inside that cell is a warehouse of different small little organs called organelles that do different things. One is mitochondria, are organelles that produce energy. Well, it also produces a lot of waste. So that waste is then exited through the cell membrane and into the extracellular space where the lymphatic system then carries it away. But since cancer is rapidly replicating, it's producing a lot more waste typically than your lymph system can carry away. And when the cancer is producing a lot more waste, that waste is more acidic typically. So cancer is growing in an acidic environment because it's producing an acidic environment. It's not because it's acidic that it grows. It's not something outside the cell that's causing the cell to grow and to replicate. So that's a medical model. It's not something outside of you that's causing a problem. It's something inside of you. Same thing with the cell. It's not something outside of the cell that's causing the problem. It's something that's inside the cell that's causing the problem. And in the nucleus, in the case of cancer. So, but it is producing a lot of acidic waste. So is it good to alkalize my body? Well, yes. Well, how would I alkalize a cancer? Well, I would increase the ability for that cancer for that site where the cancer is growing to be able to detoxify. So how do I help lymph flow to the area and lymph to drain that out? So there's not a, waste layer of acidic waste layer that hinders my immune system's ability to get lymphocytes and natural killer cells in there to kill the cancer. Well, you need to help with detoxification pathways. And you don't just detoxify through the lymph. You have to, that lymph has to be carried now back to the blood stream, the arterial system, the venous system, and then that goes back to the liver and has to exit through the liver, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 pathways, and then through the gut and then to the toilet. So that's why I wrote 7 phases of detoxification to help understand that you have to go through that process. If I drink baking soda, which is much more alkaline than alkaline water, is that going to help alkalize my tissue site? Well, yes, if my cancer is in my lower esophagus or my stomach. But the idea is you have to detoxify, you have to get rid of that acidic slime layer in order to be able to get things flowing so that your lymphocytes can get in there. So it's not just a matter of changing the pH of the area. It's a matter of getting rid of that, detoxifying that. So even if I have stomach cancer, would it be advisable to drink alkaline water? Would it be advisable to drink sodium bicarbonate, baking soda? No, I don't think so. I don't think the purpose is to change the pH of that area. The purpose is to help get rid of that waste, not to change the pH of it. I think the fact that waste is acidic is really a non-issue. Besides the fact, let's just think of physiology. If I drink baking soda, if I eat baking soda, I would be alkalizing the stomach. Is that even advisable? Drinking alkalized water, I'm alkalizing my stomach. I'm defeating the purpose of my stomach cells, the parietal cells in my stomach, producing hydrochloric acid to digest my food. I'm alkalizing my stomach, which is increasing the risk of H. pylori infection in my stomach and in my duodenum, and increasing the risk of H. pylori in the gut, which then could spread throughout my body, which H. pylori is the top 5 causes of coronary heart disease and arterial sclerosis. It just doesn't make drinking, alkalizing your stomach makes zero physiology sense whatsoever. Zero. So I just am totally in disagreement with using alkalized water. I know I'm stepping on a lot of toes, but it just does not make any physiological sense to me whatsoever. And you're actually probably producing more ill health with a person. Now, the question's going to go on here because I have to answer this part. Number 2, one of the other advertised benefits of the Kangen system is that it pumps the water full of hydrogen. Now, that's a totally different game. So hydrogenated water is totally different than alkalized water. So this machine may actually hydrogenate the water too. I am all for using hydrogenated water. So if you want to use hydrogenated water, all for that. But there's machines that use that will hydrogenate your water without alkalizing your water. So I would highly recommend that if that's something that you consider. Now, I don't tell people to go get hydrogen water. We were into that for a period of time when that all first came out. It can be costly to get a machine to do that. I don't know completely the benefits. I know that the one machine that I just got an email about yesterday or the day before that they did some internal studies with cancer patients and saw some benefits. But I have to take a closer look at that. That's a different thing than alkalized water. So yes, I am not a fan of alkalized water. I'm not a fan of drinking baking soda. But it's and you can look about H. pylori. I think I just did a couple of blog posts about that. I'm working hard on grounding and avoiding EMFs, but I want to do everything I can. Okay, good. Last week you addressed a question about mineral supplements and advocated the Clear Multi-Min. I found that there's also a Clear Multi-Min Plus on the store. Okay, so the difference between Clear Multi-Min and Clear Multi-Min Plus is that Clear Multi-Min Plus has a few other things in it. And one of the things that Clear Multi-Min Plus has in it that Clear Multi-Min does not is iodine. Now, there's a lot of controversy about iodine. So if a person has hypothyroidism, so if you have low thyroid, it's classified as either primary hypothyroidism, meaning that they have low thyroid production, but they do not have an autoimmune thyroid called Hashimoto's. So if you have antibodies to thyroglobulin or TPO antibodies that are elevated, then you have Hashimoto's or Graves if you have hyperthyroid. So those people in the thyroid category, anybody with primary hypothyroid, Graves, or Hashimoto's should not take iodine. Now we know again that's controversial because almost every alternative doctor and many mainstream doctors will tell people to take iodine for their thyroid. However, study after study after study has come out and people have not read those studies. And if you want to go into detail about iodine and thyroid, go to the courses and go to the autoimmune course and look at, I think it's the module 8, that's all on the thyroid. And I go into depth So I'll let you look at that yourself. So I am recommending that you do Clear Multi-Min, not the Clear Multi-Min Plus. When you were sick, did you go through a period where you had energy until you got up and it took everything you had just to do your daily routine of life? Yeah, I mean, I had days where I was absolutely wasted and I couldn't even sit at my desk and do work, and I had to sit down in lazy boy chair and relax. And that's what my staff knew that I was not doing well, is when I was doing a therapy in my office, um, when I was supposed to be working. So um, there was a lot of days like that. Um, so yes. Now, can there be reasons like having fluid on your lungs or having fluid ascites built up in your abdominal cavity that can cause that? Yes. Can there be other reasons like anemia? That's the most common cause of fatigue, is overwhelming fatigue, is anemia. Um, so you want to investigate those reasons. Now, this is the same person that asked the question, I believe, that just got their lung drained. And so I'm curious, and if you feel like that's any better after getting that done. I have been doing high dose vitamin C. At first, I felt so much better. The next day, the last 3 or 4 weeks, I feel worse. My hand is more swollen under my rib cage. Liver area is really swollen or sore. Do you think this is affecting the cancer? Because I have spots on my liver. Why would it bother this far into the treatments, as I've been doing them since July? 50 grams, was doing twice a week, now once a week. Because cancer could just change, and sometimes you have to change up therapies. So you might have just reached a plateau of dosage that your body can take, and you're not detoxifying it, so that you might actually be getting a toxic dose. So when you're doing this high of grams, you think, oh, IV vitamin C, that's just fantastic. You're getting 50 grams right into your bloodstream. You might, it might lose its benefits when your tissues are completely saturated and you're not able to get that out. And then when you take another dose and you're already saturated, that can be pressure on your liver. Remember what I say, what I've always said, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. So to me, if it was me, I'd pray about that and say, maybe I just need to calm down a little bit on that and just back off on that. Meaning stop doing it for several weeks to a month to see if your body just kind of settles out. Then maybe do want to get it another month or so, and just calm down on that, because you might just kind of be at a toxic dose. Brand new to Connors Clinic membership, welcome. Going into surgery tomorrow. Is the advanced healing program the best for surgery recovery? So I think you're talking about the Rife programs. I do have we have a blog post on surgery. You might want to look at that, because there are some specific Rife programs you might want to follow after surgery. Also, after watching the Rife tutorial and frequently asked question videos, the information is a little conflicting. You say you want people to snuggle with the hammer ball, 0 to 18 inches away from them in bed. Jason, I think you mean Jake at State Farm, Jake at True Rife. It's Jake with True Rife, says that the jackhammer amplifier, the effect of the hammer bulb is magnified 256 times, and it can be placed under the bed. I would prefer the under the bed approach, since I'm a light sleeper, but I have a sizable tumor with lung metastasis. Your recommendation. So understand, many of the videos that I have made over the years was prior to True Rife coming out with the jackhammer amplifier. This is a new piece of equipment as of last summer. So prior to the jackhammer amplifier, I told everybody you should just snuggle with your Rife bulb. You need to snuggle with the bulb. So, but I personally, I don't use the jackhammer. Keep, I'm just snuggled with my rifle, and I snuggle with my rifle every night. It just lays on my stomach every night. And most people on this call probably in that same situation. We didn't start including the jackhammer until just last year when it came out. So a lot of people don't have the jackhammer. Most of my patients don't have this piece. Do you need it? No. However, if you want to sleep with the bulb under the bed, then you need it. So if you have it, you can sleep with it under your bed. You can put it under your bed. So that is the conflicting information. Well, it's only conflicting because you're using another piece of equipment. So if you add the jackhammer to your bulb, then you could put the bulb under the bed. You don't have to snuggle with it, and that will solve your problem. So yes, that's exactly what you can do. Can you talk about castor oil packs? I have all the materials, but have been hesitant to do it. How do they work? How do they help someone with cancer, especially if cancer is in the liver? So I recommend castor oil packs over the liver, mainly that's all I recommend is using castor oil packs over the liver. Castor oil packs just help the flow. They'll help decrease viscosity of the bile, thereby helping the bile flow through the common bile duct and into the gallbladder and out into the duodenum. So that's how castor oil packs work. Even if you have cancer in the liver, even if you don't have cancer in the liver, they help move things through the liver. So yes, go ahead and use them. We have instructions in your manual. I recently got a GI map and mycotoxin test results. GI map, no H. pylori issues. Ooh, that's good. Opportunistic bacterium balances, yes. Staph aureus, streptococcus, low levels of secretory IgA, and occult blood. So this is inflammation in the gut, and you have some bacteria in the gut. So I have to look at your protocol that I have you on. First off, I'd probably be thinking of andrographis and berberine for these. What I would do, the occult blood has to do, this person has colon cancer, so that's to be expected. But I would think that those are the kind of things I would think of with this. The mycotox test shows ochratoxin A high, but not showing no mold in your house. So the mycotox test doesn't test for mold in your house. So I'm assuming you're saying that you don't notice any mold in your house. You'd want to get some mold plates to see if you have mold in your house. If your ochratoxin test is high, so where you get ochratoxin A, ochratoxin. So understand, again, the mycotox test is not testing for mold, it's testing for the toxins that mold produces. So when you have high levels of ochratoxin A, that means you were exposed to a mold that produces that mycotoxin. Now, that mold that produces that mycotoxin is commonly found in some foods and is very commonly found in mold that would be in buildings and in your home and things like that. So it is probably the most common mycotoxin to be elevated because we're often exposed to mold in homes and buildings and schools. And I mean, everybody's been in this, especially schools. I can still smell the mold in my memory of my school when I was in grade school.
Yeah, in my case, there's no mold in my home that I'm aware of, but there's a meditation hall and the field house where I take kids to play that is loaded with mold. And I had to actually leave that place and couldn't go there. And I haven't gone back for, probably over a month now.
Okay, so when you have elevated ochratoxins, that are the toxins of that mold production. So you still have to detoxify those. So those are poisons that mold produced that are in your body still. So the reason why you get your home tested and get your, you can smell them and you kind of got a pretty good idea. You have to do that investigation of, okay, where did I get this? Because I don't want current exposure. Because if you're going to detoxify that, and I like that, that's what I like about our ClearTox product. If you're going to detoxify that and you have current exposure, well, you know, you're never going to really detoxify it. The toxins that mold produces are poisonous to everybody, and they can really make us ill. And ochratoxin A is a cancer-causing agent. So pulling that out of your body, but also, making sure that you don't have hidden current exposure. So if you like you said, Ed, you went to these certain places and you could smell mold, so you had to exit those areas. Do not go there again. And maybe inform, higher powers that they should get that cleaned up, because other people are getting sick too. It's not going to be just you. So these are very dangerous things, and not just because they're are carcinogens, but they can cause inflammation in the brain. They can cause all sorts of really serious problems. So mold is a serious issue that needs to be dealt with. So detoxing it is the thing. So you're detoxing. These are poisons. This isn't the mold. This isn't mold in your system now. It's the toxins that the mold produces that's in your system. And you detox it with chelators. So and binders. So really any binders and any chelators can really help pull these things out. And I did look at your protocol, but you might already be on some of those things. So I'll look at your protocol tomorrow and email you if I think there's anything else we need to change.
Thank you.
Dr. Thomas Seyfried, author of Cancer as a Metabolic Disease, promotes the ketogenic diet and at time glutamine restriction to not feed cancer. He has coined the term metabolic oncology. Thoughts on this approach? Seems he has excellent results and affects cancer cells and others. So yes, so understand a ketogenic diet again is something that's you're strongly restricting any glucose in the body, and that's the balance of looking at getting a glucometer and measuring your glucose. Now, if you're getting truly into ketosis and your goal is to get into ketosis, you can't just use a glucose monitor. You have to use a ketone monitor, and that gets a little trickier. And there's a little bit of a learning curve to learn how to measure that and to get yourself into ketosis, if that is a person's goal. Most practitioners, though, believe, like I do, that it's not even necessary to get into ketosis. Really, if you could get your blood glucose down below 80, you could do the same thing as what he is doing. Matter of fact, there's some research that's going on right now through a group that I follow that is using Dr. Thomas as a member in the research group, and that's what they are finding. So even under his guidance, they are actually finding you get the exact same benefits as trying to get into ketosis as just getting the glucose levels down. Now understand, it can be hard to do. I mean, it is very difficult to stay on a ketogenic diet, and it is even more difficult to truly stay in ketosis. And most people end up giving up. The younger you are, the easier it is to do that. As we age, it's even more difficult to truly get into ketosis. And it can be difficult, as we've talked about on these Zoom calls, even eating a pretty perfect diet. Many times it's hard to get your glucose levels down below 100 for some people, because glucose is not just a product of your diet, it's a product of your cell membranes, and it's a product of your pancreas. So there's a lot of different pieces to the puzzle. I've had over the years, I've had diabetic patients that would go on a full ketogenic diet and they still, I was just mind boggled that it's not eating any glucose and any carbohydrates whatsoever. And we couldn't get their glucose levels below 150. So it was like, oh my gosh, it's more complex than that. Now, the younger a person is trying to do that, it's a little bit easier to do. Should I be taking glutamine as a supplement? No, absolutely not. It's really a glutamine restriction that you want to do. So glutamine can feed cancer, remember. So you don't want to take glutamine as a supplement. Especially, it's even more important not to take glutamine as a supplement if you're have colon or colorectal cancer. Because the epithelial cells in your colon prefer glutamine for replication. Questions on the chat. Hi, Dr. Cutters. Today I learned that Dr. Hancock will likely take me as a patient because of my situation. Good news. From him at his office, I learned about Dr. Reddy, an open-minded oncologist in the Atlanta area. So our moving plan is going forward. Praise God. That's fantastic. I have noticed a couple of times lately while holding on to my right bulb that I become electric during certain parts of the programs. When I touch someone, I buzz and slightly shock them. Is this usual and safe? Yes, it's very usual and very safe. So it can give you an electrical charge. So we talk about, adding, this person was talking about trying to use a PEMF to increase cell charge. Well, your right does increase cell charge too. You are getting some electrical benefits from that. If I have chemo in the afternoon, is it okay to do a foot bath in the morning before chemo? Yeah, I'd say no problem whatsoever with that. Sure. I had my first chemo, one of 3 weeks apart, last Wednesday. I have some side effects, but I feel much better than I would have expected. I can tell that the detoxing makes me feel better, and I am grateful. However, I can feel my kidneys as well as urinary tract pressure at times. Might be getting bogged down, and should I be using other or additional detoxing? I am doing half-hour sauna, 2 of these, coffee enemas, castor oil packs on the liver, Beamer 40 minutes a day, foot bath 3 to 4 times a week, rebounder a few minutes a day, supplements. All these are good. Maybe add a little bit of mild exercise. That can be good for the brain too. So yeah, you're doing well. Making sure you're drinking plenty of water, having good bowel movements. Do you recommend filtering city tap water? Absolutely, positively. You do not want fluoride, you do not want chlorine. 2 poisons. Fluoride is just criminal that they're still putting it in the water system. You definitely have to get that out. You do not want to be drinking that. What filter do you recommend? You can use reverse osmosis. You can use a Berkey filter. Typically, a simple carbon filter will take out the fluoride and chlorine, but a carbon filter won't take out heavy metals. If you have heavy metals in the water, that's where you have to use reverse osmosis. So some people say, well, reverse osmosis causes dead water. It doesn't have any minerals in it. Yeah, but you're not drinking your water for your minerals, and the minerals that you do get in your water are earth-bound minerals. They're not the type of minerals that are good for you anyhow. So that whole argument just does not hold water, unintended. Our water would come from Atlanta. Yeah, you need to get it. I'd recommend reverse osmosis. We have reverse osmosis here at the office. Even though we have well water at the office, tested higher in nitrates. So we have a reverse osmosis unit. Our water at our home is well water, and we've tested it and it's good. So we do not have a filtration unit at our home. Would it be good to add charcoal powder to a coffee enema? Um, I mean, you can. I don't know that it'd be really beneficial because your coffee enema isn't going very high up in your intestinal tract. So probably not. Um, you're not going to absorb that anyhow. Um, wouldn't hurt, but caught your joke, Doc Jake at State Farm. Sorry, I'm a little corny. I sleep with the jackhammer and the bulb right next to me because I thought I was supposed to. I zap my wife a lot with electric shock. Well, that actually makes life a little more fun. So that's good. So yeah, if you ask that question about putting it under the bed, if you have the jackhammer, then you can put it under the bed. I was going to ask if there was anything preventing one from snuggling with a hammer bulb connected to a jackhammer. No, except that you are getting a higher amplification, so you will end up with this problem that people are talking about, two people today, that you're going to produce more electromagnetic electricity, so you're going to have a charge. So electromagnetic, so when you rub your feet against, on the carpet and you touch somebody and you give them a shock, it's because you have more electrons on the surface of your skin. And it is the same thing with if you use the knife, you can develop electrons on the surface of your skin. So when somebody touches you, they get a shock. If you're using the jackhammer, you have an amplification of that. So you will actually produce more electrons, especially if the bulb is right next to you and you're using a jackhammer. So some people don't like that. So I understand joking that it brings a little fun to your marriage, but it's not very pleasant. So personally, I don't use the jackhammer because I've got used to snuggling with the bulb. So now if that bothered me, if the light bothered me and stuff, I would just use the jackhammer, put the bulb underneath me while I slept, and then that would solve that problem. The only caution I've seen is not to touch the jackhammer. Not a problem, as the frequency generator is under the bed. So that's fine. You really don't need to, if you have the jackhammer, you don't need to snuggle with the bulb. So are there things I should be doing to combat any potential autoimmune issues that might be happening due to the Keytruda? Well, you can't really combat them until they happen. So most people that are going to take immunotherapy, like Keytruda, that's one brand of immunotherapy, are going to end up with an autoimmune issue. You just are. You just can't prevent that. Because the whole, what immunotherapy does is it blocks the receptor site on the T cells, on your T cells. So your lymphocytes break down into natural killer cells into T cells. And that's what kills cancer. Are those two things? Well, the T cells have a receptor site that your human body cells attach to, and then it tells the T cells not to kill your body cells. So what immunotherapy like Keytruda does is it blocks that receptor site, so that your T cells will kill the cancer. Well, they'll also kill your human body cells, and you'll end up with autoimmune-like diseases. So you could get any type of inflammation. The most common will be colitis when you're on Keytruda. So you just got to deal with it when you get it and just try to heal the colon. You can't necessarily prevent it. Thank you for the admonition to not obsess about diet. I struggle with that. Thank you for pointing us back to the Lord. You're very welcome. I have a reverse osmosis system in my kitchen with minerals added. We are on a well. Should I continue with the minerals? It really depends on the source of the minerals. So I would have to know the system. I know some of those systems have like a tube thing, like a filter thing that adds minerals, but they're really crappy forms of minerals. Remember, your minerals should be as if you're eating vegetables or grass-fed beef, or grass-fed meat and chicken. Those minerals are double bonded to an amino acid. So that's why I do not recommend the liquid form minerals that are out there. I don't recommend, you know, a lot of most of the products you can buy at Target and Walgreens and stuff like that, because they're just garbage minerals, like eating dirt. We are not created to eat dirt. We're created to eat the plants or eat the vegetables or eat the animals that are eating the plants and the vegetables. It's already broken down by the plants to a double bonded to an amino acid, and then we eat that. That's how we absorb it. So it's a mineral canister added to the RO system from the company. I would get rid of that. See if you can eliminate that. It's definitely just a mineral. It's definitely a earthbound mineral. So I'd get rid of that. What are the symptoms of colitis, and when might it become active and noticeable? It would be just pain in your gut. Colitis is inflammation of the gut. So you could have pain in the gut. You could have pain after you eat. You could have you could have a bloody stool. There's different symptoms depending on how serious the colitis is. Again, don't focus on what could be. So, if any admonition I could give all of you, just to kind of keep your focus on the Lord. And yes, if something happens, then we'll deal with it and ask him how to deal with it. You can ask me how to deal with it, but don't focus on what could be, what might be in a bad sense. Focus on the possibility. Paul admonished us in First Corinthians. If there's anything that's good, anything that's holy, anything that's right, anything that's worthy of your admonition, focus on those things. That's, the world is horrible all around us. It's easy to get our eyes off of Christ and our eyes onto the problems. Let's not do that. Let's admonish each other daily to keep our eyes focused on what's positive, what's good, what's holy, and work on those things. If you're getting some stomach cramping after you eat, then make sure you're getting digestive enzymes. Make sure you have lots of supplements that you're taking. So just look at anything that could be irritating your stomach and tweak your diet around that. Thanks everyone for the prayers. My double mastectomy went smoothly, and the next day I felt fine, other than just uncomfortable. Everyone around me says it's because I'm in such good shape and doing my program this last year. Now on to the next phase. I'm grateful that went well. Praise God. That's a good note to end on. Know that I'll be praying for all of you, and I do just ask that you guys pray for each other, and keep your focus on on Christ and all that He's given us, and be grateful and thankful in all things. Until next week, we'll see you then.